I never thought a cup of coffee could change my life. But that's exactly what happened the day my mom threw scalding hot coffee on my face, in front of everyone at my sister's engagement party. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. And that moment revealed a side of my family I had tried so hard to ignore for years. I was standing there holding a small gift bag and smiling politely, when everything exploded. It wasn't just about the money. It never is. This was about control, about decades of silent expectations, about being the child who was always supposed to give and never question. See, my younger sister was getting married and my parents, especially my mom, wanted the wedding to be huge. I'm talking over-the-top venue, designer dress, imported flowers, the whole thing. And somewhere along the way they decided I would help pay for it. Not just a little. They expected me to hand over $50,000 like it was pocket change. When I politely said I couldn't do that, things got ugly. Really ugly. My mom snapped. She screamed, called me selfish, accused me of ruining my sister's big day. And then, without warning, she picked up a cup of hot coffee and threw it straight at me. The room went silent. I stood there stunned, the burning liquid dripping down my face, not just from the heat but from the betrayal. My own mother, someone I had quietly supported for years, had just humiliated me in front of our entire family and dozens of guests. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had been the one paying their mortgage behind the scenes for the last 3 years. Every month I sent money to help them keep their home. I never asked for thanks, never brought it up. I just wanted to help. But at that moment, every quiet sacrifice I'd made felt like a joke. And then something happened that no one saw coming. My fiancé, who had been watching in shock, stepped forward. He calmly but firmly told everyone exactly what I had been doing for my parents all this time. He told them about the mortgage, the unpaid bills I had quietly covered, the times I canceled my own plans just to send money home. The truth hit the room like a thunderclap. Suddenly the narrative shifted. I wasn't the selfish one. I was the one holding everything together behind closed doors. But instead of feeling vindicated, I felt something else. Tired. Tired of being the emotional ATM. Tired of the guilt tripping. Tired of a family dynamic where love was measured in dollar signs. That day wasn't just the breaking point. It was the turning point. What started as an attack turned into something much bigger. And as painful as it was, it led me down a path I never expected toward healing, toward setting real boundaries, and finally living life on my own terms. But what happened next? That's the part no one was prepared for. After that coffee incident, I didn't leave the engagement party right away. Probably should have. My face still stung, and my pride felt like it had been ripped apart in front of everyone. But I stood there, frozen, as relatives whispered and avoided eye contact. My mom, meanwhile, was still acting like the victim. She kept saying things like, "I was just upset. She doesn't understand how important this day is for our family." My sister, the bride-to-be, didn't even look at me. She just kept fussing over the cake table like nothing had happened. And my dad? He stood in a corner, silent as ever, pretending this wasn't his problem. What people didn't know was that this wasn't new. It was just the first time it had gone public. For years my mom used guilt like a weapon. I was always the lucky one in her eyes, the one who got the good job, the nice apartment, the fiancé. So in her mind that meant I owed them. Anytime she called me crying about bills or needing a little help with the house, I sent money without question. She'd always say, "Don't tell your sister. She doesn't need to worry about this." I thought I was doing the right thing. But that day made it clear I was just being used. What really broke me was how my sister reacted. We were close growing up. She was always the fun one, the dreamer, the one who got away with everything while I played the responsible big sister. I thought she appreciated how much I did for the family. But at the party, she looked at me like I was ruining her moment. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not even when my fiancé spoke up. It was like she'd chosen sides and I wasn't on hers anymore. In the days after the party, the phone calls started. First from relatives trying to play peacemaker. "You know how your mom is," they'd say. "She didn't mean it." Others said things like, "You really should have just helped out. It's your sister's wedding after all." No one asked about the burns. No one asked how I was doing emotionally. All they cared about was keeping the peace and keeping up appearances. My fiancé Adam was furious. He wanted me to cut ties with them completely. "This isn't just about the coffee," he said. They've been crossing lines for years, and they don't even see it. I knew he was right, but I wasn't ready to let go. As messed up as it was, they were still my family. I kept thinking, maybe if I just explained myself better, maybe if they really understood everything I had done for them, they'd change. They'd apologize. They'd finally treat me like more than a bank account with a smile. But deep down, something told me that wasn't going to happen. Because this wasn't about misunderstanding. It was about control. And now that I had said no just once, they saw me as the enemy. Still, something was brewing. My silence had protected them for too long. And Adam? He had a plan to change everything. One that would bring years of buried truth crashing to the surface. The following week felt like living in a fog. My phone buzzed constantly. Calls from my mom I didn't answer. Guilt-laced texts from my sister. And even a long message from my aunt trying to convince me to apologize, just to smooth things over. Apologize? For what? Being assaulted at a party because I set a boundary. The more I thought about it, the more the entire situation began to feel surreal. And underneath all of it was this tight knot in my chest, a pressure that wouldn't go away. I was angry, but more than that, I felt betrayed. Not just by my mom, but by the people who had watched it happen and stayed quiet. Adam tried to keep me grounded, but I could tell he was struggling too. He was hurt, not just for me, but because he'd seen firsthand how deeply tangled I was in a toxic dynamic. He kept asking me questions I couldn't answer. Why had I never told anyone I was paying the mortgage? Why had I kept trying to earn love that should have been unconditional? I didn't have clear answers. Part of me didn't want to admit that I'd been afraid. Afraid that if I stopped being the one who always gave, I'd have nothing left in that family. No connection. No love. Meanwhile, things with my sister took a strange turn. Instead of reaching out to talk, she started posting cryptic things online. Passive-aggressive quotes about loyalty and family, selfies with captions like, "Real ones know the truth." It was obvious who they were aimed at. Friends started messaging me, asking if we were okay. Some even said my sister was telling people I had sabotaged the engagement party out of jealousy. Jealousy? That was the moment I realized just how far this had gone. It wasn't just about money anymore. This was about image, power, and years of resentment bubbling to the surface. But there was one thing I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Adam. A few days before the engagement party, I found something that changed the way I saw everything. While dropping off a package at my parents' house, I'd accidentally opened a letter from the bank. It said the house was almost paid off, only a few payments left. But my mom had still called me that week, crying about how they were months behind, asking me for more help. I didn't say anything at the time. I told myself there had to be some misunderstanding, but now it made sense. I was being manipulated, lied to. Adam had a friend, a financial advisor, who agreed to take a look at things for me. He warned me that the truth might hurt, and when the report came back, it did. Turns out, the mortgage had been paid down faster because my contributions were double what my parents ever admitted. And even worse, some of the extra money I sent didn't go to the house at all. It went to my sister's wedding fund. Months before I was ever asked for that $50,000. I felt sick. And I knew then that this wasn't just about a coffee cup or a single argument. This was a pattern. A long, carefully hidden pattern of emotional manipulation, financial guilt-tripping, and lies. But exposing the truth wasn't going to be easy, especially when the people closest to me were still pretending nothing was wrong. I couldn't sleep the night I got the financial report. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling like my whole life had been built on a lie. I had spent years working overtime, skipping vacations, saving every spare dollar, just so I could help my parents stay afloat. And the whole time they were funneling that money into a wedding I wasn't even invited to help plan. I kept replaying every phone call, every teary thank you, every time my mom said, "We couldn't do this without you." Now I realized she wasn't talking about the house. She meant the wedding. My sister's dream wedding. The one I was apparently ruining by not giving another $50,000. Adam tried to talk me down, but I was past calm. Something had snapped in me. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the lies, the manipulation, and how they'd made me feel small for setting a boundary. I felt like I was drowning in a family that only saw my worth in terms of how much I could give. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. A few days later, My parents invited me to a family dinner at their house to talk things out. I knew what that really meant. One last chance for them to guilt me into paying up. At first, I told Adam I didn't want to go. But he convinced me it might be the best place to finally put everything on the table. So we showed up, me, Adam, and a thick folder of receipts, bank statements, and transfer records. The moment we walked in, I felt it. That cold tension in the air, the kind that creeps in before a storm. My mom greeted me like nothing had happened. No mention of the coffee, no apology, just a forced smile and, "I'm glad you came." My sister was there too, avoiding eye contact, sitting beside my dad like she was waiting for a courtroom drama to unfold. We sat down. They served food. And then it started. My mom went first. She launched into a speech about family values, about unity, about how everyone had to make sacrifices. Then came the guilt. "You know your sister's wedding is the most important day of her life." My dad nodded quietly. My sister said nothing. I waited, letting them talk until they finally got to the question they really wanted to ask. "So, are you going to help or not?" That's when I pulled out the folder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just started laying it all out, every payment, every transfer, every lie. I watched their faces change with each page. My mom's smile twitched. My dad looked down. My sister finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Wait, you've been paying the mortgage?" She looked at them confused. "You said she didn't help with anything." And then the silence hit like a punch to the gut. The kind of silence that says everything you need to know. But before anyone could speak, Adam reached into his jacket and pulled out one last piece of paper. One that would make everything impossible to deny. One that would change the entire conversation. And just like that, we were one breath away from the truth exploding into the open. Adam's hand trembled slightly as he slid the final piece of paper across the table. It was a copy of a bank statement, but not mine. It belonged to my sister. For a second, no one moved. My mom's eyes flicked to it, then to Adam, then back to me. "What is this supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice sharp now, no longer trying to sound sweet. Adam didn't answer. I did. "It's proof," I said quietly, "that the wedding fund you're asking me to contribute to already has over $80,000 transferred from your joint account with Dad into hers, starting 6 months ago." My sister's face drained of color. "What? No, that's not true. You told me we didn't have enough." She turned to our mom, eyes wide, voice rising. "You said we were struggling. That's why you needed her help." My mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked like she'd been cornered, eyes darting between us like she was searching for a way out. But there wasn't one. Because that statement, along with everything else we'd uncovered, showed a pattern of lying, not just to me, but to my sister too. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about control over me. My mom had been playing both sides, telling me they were broke to get money out of me, and telling my sister they had no choice but to ask me for help, manipulating us both to protect her own plans. My dad, still silent, looked at the table like he wanted to disappear into it. He didn't deny anything. He never did. But then my sister stood up, hands shaking. "You used me," she said to my mom. "You made me look like I was greedy, like I was pressuring her. All this time you made me believe she didn't care." For the first time I saw something in her face that looked like genuine hurt. But before anything else could be said, the doorbell rang. We all froze. My mom glanced at the door, confused. "Who?" Adam stood up calmly and walked to answer it. And when the door opened, in walked a woman none of us recognized, except for Adam. She was a lawyer. "Mrs. Green?" the woman asked, looking directly at my mom. "I'm here to serve you notice. You're being investigated for financial misrepresentation related to joint family assets. There's reason to believe that funds received under false pretenses may have violated state law." My mom's face went white. "What? What are you talking about? What is this?" Adam stepped back beside me. "I told you," he said quietly. "We're not playing this game anymore." It turned out, while I had been debating whether to cut ties or keep peace, Adam had been working behind the scenes. He didn't just want me to be free of the guilt. He wanted accountability. He knew I wouldn't push for it on my own, so he did the hard part for me. With my permission, he'd handed everything to a legal advisor, to at least investigate if what they did had crossed a line legally. The stakes were no longer emotional. They were real. My mom stood there, papers in hand, still trying to process what was happening. My dad looked like he was about to faint. And my sister just sat back down, silent, staring at the floor. But the truth was out now. And what came next? None of us were prepared for. For a long moment, no one spoke. My mom clutched the legal papers like they were a foreign language she couldn't understand. Her face twisted between confusion and panic, and for the first time she looked unsure, vulnerable. My dad finally stood up, but instead of defending her, he muttered, "I told you this would catch up to us," and walked out of the room. Just like that. No emotion, no apology. He left the mess behind like he always had. My sister looked at me then, really looked at me. Her voice cracked when she asked, "Why didn't you tell me? About the house? About the money?" I took a deep breath. Because I thought protecting the family meant protecting the lie. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I thought if I kept giving, things would get better. But it only made it worse. There was no yelling. No dramatic scene. Just silence. Heavy, honest silence. The lawyer left after explaining that this was only a preliminary investigation, but the damage was done. My mom didn't try to argue. She didn't say a word to me as I walked toward the door. I think she knew there was nothing left to say. I thought that was the end of it. That walking away would be the final chapter. But then, a few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. It was from my grandmother, my mom's mom, someone I hadn't heard from in years. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a short note. "I've been watching all of this from the sidelines. I know what your mother did. She learned it from me. I failed her. But I'm proud you broke the cycle. Use this however you want, not out of guilt, but because you deserve to be seen." I sat there holding the note, completely stunned. That was the twist I never expected. The quiet admission that this pattern had roots deeper than I ever realized. Generations of women taught to survive through manipulation, guilt, and silence. But not anymore. That night I burned the letter, not out of anger but release. I didn't need the money or the apology. I had already started healing. And for the first time in my life I felt free. Not because I got revenge, but because I chose myself. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was finally living on my own terms. In the months that followed, I didn't hear much from my mom or dad. The investigation didn't lead to serious charges, but it did force them to acknowledge what they'd done. My mom sent me a single message, short and cold, saying she hoped I was happy now. It stung a little, but mostly it confirmed that she still saw everything as a power struggle, not a chance for growth. I didn't reply. I wasn't looking for revenge or validation anymore. I just wanted peace. My sister, though, surprised me. Slowly, quietly, she started reaching out. At first, just small messages, asking how I was, thanking me for helping with the mortgage, apologizing for not knowing the truth. She told me she had canceled the original wedding plans and was starting over with something simpler. Something that felt more honest. She and I weren't suddenly best friends, but we were talking again, for real this time. No guilt, no competition. Just two people trying to understand each other after years of being used against one another. Adam and I moved forward too. That whole mess brought us closer in a way I didn't expect. I think he finally saw the version of me I'd kept hidden. The version always trying to earn love that should have been given freely. And I saw how deeply he believed in me. Not just when I was strong, but when I was at my absolute lowest. We didn't rush into anything big. No wedding bells just yet. But we started talking seriously about the future. A future that felt like mine for once. I also began therapy. Not just to work through what happened with my parents, but to untangle years of emotional knots. I had to face the hard truth that sometimes, family isn't who raises you. It's who respects you. And sometimes, breaking away from toxic family patterns doesn't make you the villain. It makes you the one who finally said, enough. I shared my story with a few close friends, and eventually, it became something I didn't feel ashamed of anymore. In fact, I realized that telling it helped others open up about their own struggles with toxic family expectations and emotional manipulation. I got messages from people who had gone through similar things, some even worse, and they told me my story made them feel less alone. I guess that's why I wanted to share it here too. Because not all revenge stories come with dramatic payback. Sometimes the best revenge is choosing peace. Choosing yourself. Walking away from people who only value you when you're giving them something, and building your own life on your own terms. That's what I did. And I'm still doing it day by day. So if you've ever been made to feel like your worth depends on what you give, or if you've been punished for setting boundaries, know this. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to say no. You're not selfish. You're not cruel. You're just finally choosing to live for yourself. And sometimes that's the most powerful ending of all.